Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth episode of our podcast. Today it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Maxime Vermeir, who is working at company ABBYY as a senior director of AI strategy. Today we're going to be discussing product development in the era of AI, and I believe Maxim is a great fit actually for this, coming from the a little bit of engineering background and then product management turned into head of AI strategy for a very well-known company in the intelligent document processing sector. So welcome, Max. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, thanks, Yuri, for the invitation. It's always fun to talk to you guys. So when you invited me for the podcast, I was quite excited, and yeah, happy to be here.
Great. Thanks for joining us again. And let's start with the first topic or question that I have here for you. Or maybe let's actually start a little bit broader. AI. I think everyone is talking about AI. Do you remember like what was the first time you hear that and what sort of circumstances and a memory about like
Well,
when you
there's actually yeah, no, there's actually a funny story. So as my background, my scholarly background is actually doing a specific how to call it in English, specific course in industrial sciences, specifically computer technologies, and oh God, back in the day, I was even specializing in telecom networks. But during a part of that, of course, we did a lot of programming. As part of that, we did a lot of experiments with technology, motherboards and soldering and everything. So it was a really complete kind of course, and we did cover things that back then were just called machine learning. And not too long ago, I think it was somewhere last year, we had an alumni evening, and some of my professors actually invited me to come and speak about what it is that AI is doing right now, because they saw that I had an opinion on that kind of thing. Um, and so when it really hit me how long I've had already actually been working with AI is when they started handing out stickers to all the alumni that said graduated before ChatGPT. And that to me was like so funny. I still have that sticker. I've put it on my laptop. It's absolutely awesome. But I've also started to kind of use that as something that I tell, when I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, AI is so new." I'm like, "No, it's older than me. It's older than when I was back in college." And if you go all the way back, we have to go back to, like, depending on who you ask, 1970s or even earlier, to see the first shapes and forms of AI when it comes to machines actually learning to do stuff. The interesting bit now is that with the whole hype and craze around generative AI, is that the mass market, literally everybody suddenly knows what it is, or thinks they know what it is, which is an important kind of distinction. They think they know what it is. So it's been an interesting world to now be able to kind of talk more about artificial intelligence, even though it might have been something that in the basics of it, the mathematics of it, is something that you've been using for ages. Your iPhone charging, knowing when it needs to be charged and when not. Guess what? That's AI, and we've been using that for years.
Mm.
The ability to enhance photos automatically and combine images, again, a feature that you've had on your thing sitting in your pants all the time for several years now. So all of it is AI, and I think a lot of people still underestimate just how much has already been available to them for a very long time.
Exactly. Yeah. Even calculator, like simple calculator, is actually AI, right? But I think now people connect this with as you mentioned, generative AI. Since the I think ChatGPT was introduced. Now we're seeing that hype all over like everywhere. So
Yeah,
um,
I mean, you have to admit, from a product perspective, and in terms of making themselves known, OpenAI did a very smart move, because I don't know if you know this, but the very first GPT model actually came out in 2018. So GPT-1 was released by OpenAI in 2018. Nobody knew, nobody cared. I had to look it up. I had no idea. and I'm supposed to know these things. So then it took until ChatGPT, and the only thing that they really changed in terms of the capabilities of the previous model, because GPT 3.5, well, 3.0, behind it was already released. The only thing that they did is they gave it an interface that was easy to use, that everybody could access. And that's how they got this technology into the world, because the
Mm.
principles of it already existed. They just gave it a face, and that was a pretty. I mean, that one will go down in history as a very smart move to get a technology and to create demand, by letting people use it very easily, so they can see what it can do, and then everything that we've experienced over the last couple of months ensued.
That's interesting. I actually didn't know that, and actually, it's that makes sense right now. If you're having something like version 4 or something, right? And so yeah, 2018, nobody knew about them. Like, yeah, that's interesting. And that's also, I think they also did a great job. Like when people say AI today, they connect this almost immediately with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. So now let's take a look at AI in terms of the intelligent document processing segment that ABBYY is part of. If you take a look at all the products out there belonging to that group, they all kind of leverage AI in these products. So, what role exactly does AI play for companies like ABBYY, and how is it useful for customers in the context of a product like yours?
Well, maybe just to kind of enlighten everybody a bit about what is intelligent document processing, because it's depending on who you talk to, it's something that they either know or they confuse with something else. So,
Makes sense.
intelligent document processing is I would say, a more complex version of what a lot of people call OCR, and OCR is a shape of and size of computer vision. So when I actually have another funny story for you about telling people what does ABBYY do, and how does IDP play into the whole AI craze. So I went to California not too long ago, and I, of course, as a European citizen, you have to go through customs control, and border patrol, and they're always very interested in what brings you to the country. And so the guy asked me, so what's your occupation? I'm like, okay, I'm a senior director for AI strategy. And his answer was, well, how can you be your age and a senior director in AI if AI has only been around for 2 years? How does that happen? So he thought I was making shit up, and then I had to explain to him that the company that I work for has actually been doing AI since for more than 30 years, 35 years now, and the AI is even older than that. So similar to your first topic, I mean, he was like baffled. So I had to explain him exactly what we do, not because he was curious about, I mean, what am I doing in the country. At this point, he was just like, AI has been around for this long. Shit, I can learn something from this guy. So that was a very interesting conversation to have at Border Patrol. But it really showcases that, because there is so much under the AI umbrella, that people often confuse it and think that there's old ways of doing this, there's new ways of doing it. But the main thing is that if you want to build solutions like an IDP platform like ABBYY does, you have to have all of the right bits and pieces fitting together, working together to actually make it into something that people can use. That's also why we kind of specialize our AI into what we call purpose-built AI, because that's really our mantra as to how we look at everything in terms of the capabilities that AI offers. But over the last couple of years, what we've seen a lot is startups, is other companies just pushing technology into a product and then seeing what sticks. And I think that's also what kind of created this sentiment in the market that people are looking for the usefulness of Gen AI within the broader spectrum of enterprise applications. And that's really where we kind of positioned ourselves as a company that purposely builds AI specifically, and using the right kind of AI, whether that's machine learning through or forecasting, or whether that's k-means, whether that is something else, neural networks, or that is Gen AI, that's language models, whatever it is that we need to solve the customer's problem. So, and we've been doing that for many, many years. We started out with OCR, optical character recognition, literally turning page of text into something that a computer can understand. And that then evolved into intelligent document processing, which means that we can now understand anything that happens inside of that page. meaning that we can know who is being talked to, whether there's multiple parties within a contract, what the amount is of the invoice, whether you have the right credit score, whether your tax form is completely entered. So all of those things kind of now can happen automatically. And that is really what intelligent document processing can do. So if you think about it, if you think about where is that useful, where can I actually see that in action? Well, it's in so many places. If you work with your bank and you have to send in a document, I can assure you that there's an intelligent document processing platform behind it, and there's nobody in the back office that's actually filling that out into the ERP system manually anymore. So it's all about one of the important bits in terms of creating this new level of expectation that the market has in terms of customer experience. Nobody wants to sit and wait for the loan to be approved. Nobody wants to sit and wait to get onboarded with a company as a new customer. So KYC, all those different kind of things, whenever you have to scan your passport, your identity card, driver's license, and stuff like that, all of that is being powered by intelligent document processing behind the scenes. So that data that is coming from these documents, whether they're digital, whether they're electronic, whether they're still in paper, all of that can be transformed into data that actually can go into a process so that it can be fully automated. So that's in a nutshell what IDP is. Now,
Mhm.
to your question, Yuri, where does AI play a part? Well, like I said, everywhere, in every single step of the way. But the important bit is that it covers the entire range of AI capabilities, and it's not just focusing on the Gen AI piece, which is also something that that I've definitely seen that a lot of people right now are trying to do, is just using a singular technology to solve a much bigger problem, and then not really being successful. I don't know if you've seen that as well.
Um, yeah, I think like it's actually the second question that I also have here. Like, it I think there's a push now to introduce something AI that has the name the AI. Like the way I understand it, like intelligent document processing companies were working with AI before it was cool, and it was AI back then, right? But now actually, you become the director for AI strategy. Um, is it like a new position there, or was there someone before? Um, like I think when I
No,
now visit the websites of those other document processing companies, everywhere is like a shiny new feature, something with AI. Although, like, is it just like a marketing that everyone is now pushing, or what is that?
well, I actually think it's twofold. So to answer your first question, yes, it was a new position, and definitely, I would say it came from a need within the organization. Well, actually, a need that was created in the market. People suddenly wanted to know. Um, at the start of my career, I was told very clearly, do not talk about technology, only talk about outcomes and solutions. And that actually got to a stage where people were only looking at the results that you could deliver as a vendor, and everything else didn't matter. How you solved the problem was somebody that was in the corner, tech guy. He might have cared, but in the end, he had no input whatsoever. And overnight, if you put it into like how fast the industry, enterprise industry moves, overnight, suddenly everybody, the CEO, the CFO, everybody on the business side wanted to know, hey, how does this technically work? So me as a tech guy, I was very happy because I was like, hey, all this stuff that we've been doing since before AI was cool, we can now call cool, and we can actually talk about it. So is it in part marketing? Absolutely, because now the market wants to know. So you have to respond to that. So I was able to dust off a lot of technical things, put a new shiny polish on it, and say, hey, look, this is everything that we have. People are like, wow, we didn't know. Well, you didn't care before. So that's one thing that changed. On the other side, I do think that if you look at how history has been evolving in terms of all of our capabilities when it comes to artificial intelligence, and I'm really talking about everything that we can do there. The level that we are at right now in terms of computing power and the availability of information that we have, which are the two driving factors that are currently allowing us to go on this journey of exploration into the capabilities of that technology, that is also what is making a huge difference. So let me talk you through that just a little bit more. So one thing that people are also confused about is that we are creating some of these new capabilities, like you see with ChatGPT or the one that they have now. Actually, it's much closer to a level of exploration that we're doing. We're continuing to pump more processing power and data into this technology that, again, was invented and didn't really change to something that was useful in 2017 because somebody at Google wrote a paper. But that's where it all started. And in this short amount of time, we've been upping our capabilities in terms of infrastructure and the amount of information that's available. And that's actually helped us uncover, hey, if we pump more of these two things into this thing, it does new things that we didn't expect it to do. And so now we're on the journey of exploration. Now, that also means that along the way, there are a lot of new useful things that we, for example, in an IDP platform, can use. We don't need it to think on its own. We just need it to think how to look at documents and how to look at documents more accurately, faster, and easier to set up. That's what customers want. So is it purely marketing? No, not at all. I think definitely there's a kind of category of like I said, organizations that are just taking whatever is new and putting into the product without really thinking it through what it is that delivers for their customers. On the other side, I think definitely, at ABBYY, we're looking at, okay, how do we showcase everything that we've already accomplished? Which I think is definitely something that is really cool as a technology company that you're now able to do. You still have to deliver the outcomes. That hasn't changed. Now there's just an additional piece that you have to talk about the technology as well. But then as we kind of see and spot interesting capabilities that are coming from all of that amazing research that's happening right now, we can incorporate that into our products as well to, again, focus on performance, speed, capabilities, and the ability to actually make our customers' lives even easier when it comes to the core of our business. So that's the exciting part. The speed at which new things are being discovered in the technology world right now is amazing to be a part of.
Mm, mm, mm. But don't you feel kind of like a push, sort of from the or like do you feel that for some other product managers there is some kind of like a push to introduce new AI powered features because this is something that the customers want to see and like potentially use. And then again, where's the balance between let's ship this a great new AI feature, and then seeing customers not really adopting it. Um, like do you see something like that in the in product
Yeah,
management
for
space
sure.
nowadays?
And I think, yeah, absolutely. So I think definitely there's this push because there is an expectation being created from the market that they want to see AI features. I often compare it to consumerization, right? So a great metaphor for it is actually the release of the very first iPhone. Up until then, enterprise software was gray. It was very hard to use. You needed experts. You needed people that worked with it day in, day out to be able to use it. Came the iPhone, suddenly people had technology in their hands that just worked and they could understand it. It was very easy to use. So just as that kind of change in the consumer market made the demand within the enterprise market change to, hey, we want to be able to do this ourselves. We've seen that it's possible. So that kind of started the whole low code, no code transformation that we've seen in the market over the last couple of years. Now, ChatGPT, again, very well done, did exactly the same thing.
Hmm.
Now consumers have had in their hands basically technology that they feel is incredibly easy to use. Behind the scenes is incredibly complex and very powerful. But now that's created an expectation of things like this. AI should just make it work. If I ask it questions, I get an answer. So if I do want to do this with your technology, why is it not just giving me an answer? If I want to do this with your product, why is it not just working? So I think definitely the expectation has been created that there has to be AI capabilities within a product. Like I said, I think we had at ABBYY definitely the benefit that we've been doing AI capabilities for a very long time, so we could just easily showcase that without immediately having to incorporate new technology into our products. Nonetheless, we do see that, like I said, it opens new possibilities. And I think you asked about the balance. I think that's an important one, because what do you do in terms of adding new features, but not really knowing what they are going to deliver for the customer? And that's also kind of the journey that everybody's been on with Gen AI, is how can we actually make sure that it consistently does what we want, because it is a probabilistic type of technology, meaning that you don't always fully 100% sure that you're going to get the same answer twice, which makes it interesting. That's why we see it being extremely successful in any kind of creative process. But for other areas, it makes it a little bit more complex to deal with, even though it has, definitely merits and capabilities that you want to add, for example, into an IDP platform to shorten the amount of time that people need for setup and stuff like that. The implementation is often the hardest part. How do I actually create a feature powered by Gen AI so I can say it's powered by AI, but it actually makes a difference for the customer? Unfortunately, what I've seen in the market is that there's been a lot of push to indeed put AI into a product so it has a cool demo, but then to actually use it, or to even, I would say, be able to move to production, was simply impossible. But I mean, I think everybody's kind of getting past that. If I talk to customers today, you do get that question: what kind of AI do you have? What are you planning to do with AI? But then they actually want to go back to results and see what that actually does. So more and more, again, there's then a realization in the market that people are looking past that first layer of veneer, the AI veneer these days, or the AI veil, and they're like, okay, show me what's under the hood, because I actually want to make sure that it's not just great to look at and see what it does and be marveled for a few moments, but then actually it still has to solve my business problem, and that's the core of it.
But apparently, I guess, well, especially in the intelligent document processing space, given what it is, I guess there's no, like, you cannot build like a product for this group or this segment without having some sort of AI technology in it, right? It's given that it's a part
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
that.
No. Exactly. Yeah.
And
It's computer vision. I mean,
right.
it's AI from the ground up, and in all different kinds of AI working together to make the entire thing possible, for sure.
I see. Are you building all this kind of like AI things inside Abbott? Is it like your proprietary technology, or do you um, kind of depend um, to some extent on some existing solutions or models? Are you leveraging, for example, ChatGPT itself or other models that merged?
So no, I think definitely, well, at least from our side in the IDP space, specifically at ABBYY, we do make sure that the most important bits are fully proprietary, for the simple reason that we want to be able to ensure to our customers, explain to our customers, first of all, how it works, so that is not a black box. The explainability, the traceability of AI is becoming increasingly important. Also from an infosec kind of purview, legislation compliance purview. The thing is that with a lot of vendors that offer capabilities as a service, like OpenAI, for example, transparency is for a lot of organizations still a problem, because, like I said, for example, KYC, know your customer processes, we're processing passports, utility bills, driver's licenses, all those kind of things have PII, personally identifiable information, and especially even if you go to healthcare, we're talking about people's most sensitive information. So this is also something that's kind of been evolving very rapidly, in my opinion, that there's definitely from customers and prospects and just the market in itself now an eye on, hey, is this AI compliant with all of the legislation that's coming into place? And then, of course, is it also ethical? Those are also questions that we're getting. And those are two things that are quite important. So Yeah, I think that that's really the gist of what people are now taking into account to make sure that they can say, hey, this is something that we can work with. That's why it's important to us to actually make sure that we can explain that we can also showcase what kind of maybe open source capabilities that we've investigated and looked at, but then optimized, changed, and used our own training data to rebuild so that the full, I would say, end-to-end stack or end-to-end traceability is there for our customers to understand what it is that they're working with as a finished product.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I I heard that from Salesforce as well, like that their Einstein is kind of all about this, like traceability and like explaining why did it decide that way or why did it give that recommendation. Does that mean that like ChatGPT or OpenAI doesn't really provide that? Is it more of that like black box that you mentioned, or and you really cannot kind of deep
Well,
dive
it's
what's in it, or like, or are there like
yeah, it's a great
other
question, right? So,
are there other models maybe from different companies that are more traceable? In a sense?
So I think the actually the University of Stanford did kind of like a matrix on the transparency of different models that are available. It's quite interesting to go look at. So they rated on multiple kind of categories, whether that how transparent are they about the training data that it was used, how transparent are they about the technology that's inside of the model that is being used, what is the energy consumption, ESG, also super important. People are very conscious about the fact that these capabilities, for all their coolness, are very power hungry. And we've heard, Meta talk about that. We've heard OpenAI talk about that. And all of these, countries as well as companies have these goals that they have to meet when it comes to ESG. So to come back to our, your question, isn't OpenAI, for example, is it too much black box? I would say for a lot of organizations, in government, in healthcare, in very compliance heavy organizations, it definitely is, because there's very little transparency on what the training data is that they use. There's also been a lot of back and forth. I think in terms of being able to shield your data from them, in terms of that it's not being used for training, that's definitely solved. That's something that they fixed quite rapidly as soon as they went to enterprise capabilities that they offered. And also you can have OpenAI on Azure, so that also makes a difference. But I think overall, I hear from a lot of people that are saying, well, we don't see enough transparency coming from that vendor to be able to just use it um, directly if they have direct relation, or even if it's built into another product. Just last week I was talking to a company in the Netherlands, and they literally said, "Well, the other vendor that you were basically competing with, we had to cut out because they were using OpenAI for us. That is not transparent enough. There's not enough
Hmm.
assurances that we can get from them to make sure that we can comply with all the things that we have to comply with." And that was through actually OpenAI built into a product that was the end product, so that make it
Hmm.
even more complex. So I think
Hmm.
definitely there's a multitude of models available. I think we have, I would say that we have too many models at this point. If you're a consumer, if you're in the market, if you're a product manager, um, then you've got a whole forest of models that you can look at to see what will fit best for what you're trying to do. But each of them have plus sides, downsides, and it really depends. It really depends. But I think for depending on, and this is also why it's important to look at what exactly do you need it to do, what kind of function does it need to fulfill, and what kind of capability in the AI space do you need to use to solve that problem. Because it's a funny story, but I was talking to a bunch of data scientists, and they were going to ask the business for 30,000 documents that they had to annotate to figure out what a particular number was on each of those documents. And they were going to build a model for it because that was the thing back then. Everybody was going to build their own models. That particular number could fit in a regex. When I told them I can solve this problem for you in 5 minutes with a regex, they simply fell over because they hadn't thought about that. And that's the whole thing about this kind of tunnel vision that suddenly happened, that everything had to be AI. and where people are now going back to is saying like, well, this thing that was maybe from before ChatGPT is actually better at doing this particular part than ChatGPT is. That was also the whole thing when people started talking about small language models, like it was something new. It's not. The small language
Hmm.
models were actually there before large language models because they're the same technology, but again, they were trained on specific things and specific tasks. So
Right.
it's a continuous interesting evolution, and I think definitely when we're talking about compliance and saying, hey, are certain capabilities or vendors that are being offered not open enough? They definitely are not, and I think even more importantly, the market is now like, okay, just give me the right fit for purpose technology for the problem that I'm trying to solve. That's the most important bit.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I'm not sure if you already answered that, but like, so are you currently dependent, or ABBYY is in some products at least dependent on some external models that you're getting from different companies, or is it something that you can actually share, or
Yep.
and yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, we're actually
yeah.
quite open about that. I think
Mhm.
if you go to our AI page on the website, we kind of explain at each and every single step of our end-to-end process for intelligent document processing what technologies are there, and what they
Mhm.
are based on. But like I said, even though they are based on, for example, existing models like BERT or Roberta, we retrain them and actually optimize them again with our data, our proprietary technology as well, to make
Mhm.
them unique and specific for the task at hand. Because again, I actually saw a really great kind of comparison that called all of these large language models GPTs, and not in generative pre-trained transformer, but general purpose tool. That is what they are. So
Mhm.
yes, we for example use BERT and other types of language models and other types of open source capabilities that we looked at as the foundation in our product, but we actually productize that. There's a difference between taking an open source project and actually turning it into a product. And we retrained it, optimized it for the best performance that we need to have for our specific type of product that we build, which is intelligent document processing.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, well, now if we take a look at this from a different perspective, how does AI help you build a better product? What has changed in your process since AI became publicly available? Did it somehow modify your workday, like different processes in your everyday life as a product manager?
Yeah, for me, definitely, I would say it's changed a lot. If I look at my personal productivity, I love using all of the new capabilities that are there. I try to automate as much as possible. I've even attempted to make a duplicate of myself so that when people ask questions, they can just go chat to me instead of having to chat to me. So I did give it a very apt name, which is Max GPT. But yeah, I love the possibilities of it, and I think they're absolutely endless. From a product management perspective, that was my previous role, but I think it has changed a lot. I think I do really believe that it's kind of made it more difficult at the same time as easier to solve certain problems. But I think it's definitely a fun challenge for people in the product management space right now to look at all of this menu card of possibilities of things that are now possible or easily possible or easier possible than before, that don't have to build themselves as a company, but you can just integrate into a product and make it useful. But the make it useful part is the hard part. What does it really change for my customer? What does it really change for my product? Is it going to be used? Because if it's not going to be used, then I think it's also something that can end up to be quite costly and quite difficult to manage. To give you another example, this relates to both this question and the previous one. I don't know if you saw this, but not too long ago, I think a few weeks ago, OpenAI announced that they're going to deprecate GPT 3.5 and 3.5 Turbo. So that was the first really kind of model that a lot of other companies started to use to push into their products to offer certain capabilities. If you look at how long ago that is, that's no more than a year and a half, something like that. So if you take into account development cycles, if you take into account customers that are trusting what is happening that is being powered by that technology, the answers that they're getting. So that means that all of these companies in the span of less than a year have to now change to the next model. And that development cycle, especially in the enterprise world, is incredibly fast. We have customers that can only update their even the cloud, even if they're in a SaaS platform, they have strict rules and regulations. The bigger the company, the more rules and regulations, that can only update things once a year or change things once a year in a very narrow window. So I think that makes it also a much harder job for product managers to take all of that into account, the volatility of the innovation, right? There's the innovation that's moving at a very rapid pace, which is great, but it also brings volatility, which is not exactly what you want, because you want a stable product, you want something that customers can trust. And so that's another thing to navigate, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get back to Max GPT. Is this like how does it work actually? Like who is it? Who is it for? Is there a way I can
Yeah.
try it out myself?
No, no, I haven't made it public yet. I wouldn't want to do that to the world, to be honest. So no, Max GPT I've loaded it with um, a lot of things that I've written, a lot of conversations, transcriptions of conversations that from my podcast, the AI
Hmm.
Pulse podcast, um, that have transpired, and so it talks like me, which is sometimes quite funny, because it feels like I'm talking to myself. And then I've also given it a sufficient amount of knowledge for a lot of basic things that I care about, or articles, or news items, or product brochures, or product documentation, so that it is pretty capable. But what you also can see very quickly, and that's what I think is also part of the complexity, is to validate these answers, to make sure that it gets it right. But it is a useful tool, and when it gets to a point that it is useful enough, I definitely want to make it available internally. So if there's something that is necessary, that people want to know, that they would typically come to me for it. It can be like a first line of
Oh
defense.
yeah. Yes, yes.
So that's definitely what Max GPT is. Um, but I think overall, I mean, throughout my entire day-to-day operations and processes, I think AI is just basically everywhere. And it's not just AI. AI is the I think the wrong way to put it. I think automation is everywhere, and AI is a part of that. It's one of the tools. And I think with where we're seeing things heading right now with agentic AI and AI agents, and how that offers yet another level of possibilities, I think that's going to be the first thing that will tackle, is going to be the personal automation, ad hoc automation, just people explaining to their computer what they want them to automate, and that the agents actually go figure out how to do it, instead of them having to do it. So, but yeah, Max GPT still in beta, but it's getting there at some point.
Let us know when it's available. I would really love to try that. It sounds a bit nerdy, but I totally agree that this might be very useful actually. Like if you're, like ask for from your colleagues and like it answers as you. Sounds great. Sounds great. Um, okay, now
Yeah, sarcasm
let
is definitely included in its abilities.
okay, okay. That's great. I'm actually quite surprised even when I talk to ChatGPT, like how it can be funny sometimes and sometimes not really. Like it tries to be funny and then it's not. It's yeah, but it's getting better. Um, now some people like in the press you see it everywhere. Um, People start talking about AI as a bubble, as something that just inflates and goes away. Uh, like, what role do you envision AI playing in the future of product development or generally in the future? Is it like, do you perceive that the introduction of ChatGPT and other models is like a revolution and there's no way back, or do you see that it gets out from that spotlight sometime soon? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, all technology moves in an S curve, right? It goes from what is it useful for, to it being very exciting, to then being incredibly boring. The reason why everybody believes that ChatGPT or LLMs and everything else around Gen AI is AI is because all the other AI before that had already moved into boring. We've gotten used to it, so it's no longer exciting. To put that into perspective, I know I keep talking about the iPhone, but it's always a perfect example. When smartphones first came out, when a Nokia communicator, and you saw Kelly Clarkson in her video clip trying to text Nelly on Excel, people were thinking, what the hell is this useful for? What am I going to do with this clunky thing? It wasn't until the actual iPhone that it became exciting smartphone technologies as a category. And then now people are no longer lining up at the Apple store, are they, when there's an iPhone 16 or 16 Pro? Me as an avid Apple fan, I buy my iPhone every 2 years now instead of every once a year.
Mm,
I don't get the latest one because I'm like, sure, nice upgrade, but no, it doesn't do that much. It's moved on the S curve from why is it useful to being incredibly exciting and now being absolutely boring, even though the innovation that's happening technically is still staggering.
mm,
And exactly the same thing is already happening today with ChatGPT, with LLMs, and everything else. But it's not something that doesn't mean that it's going to go away. It's going to go into the category of we're used to it now, and it's going to infiltrate its way into our lives in a level of productivity and capabilities, just like Apple Intelligence. It's all those kind of technologies, but they're going to move to your phone. They're going to be embedded inside of your everyday working manner of your the device that you have, and at some point you're going to be like, this is normal. I'm used to it.
mm,
And then the next thing is going to come along, and that will be, first of all, we're going to look at it like, what does this do? Um, and I think definitely what is the next S curve that I'm seeing, at least for 25, is AI agents. There's a lot of confusion around it. There's a lot of interest around it. I think it's also, to be fair, something that the market is creating, the technology market is creating, because they see Gen AI moving into that boring part of the S curve. And the whole cycle was actually incredibly fast, faster than people, I think, expected. So that's where definitely there's going to be new categories being created to create that whole new S curve again and get us, keep the ball rolling, because AI is not going to go away. Will it have an impact? 100%. I think we'll continue to see amazing innovations, especially now that the market is demanding that people deliver products that are useful, that are built for actually solving specific things. And we're going to have this duality happening all the time. I think you're going to have companies like OpenAI, the company behind Claude, and others, and Meta, for example, pushing the boundaries, doing the exploration, and that will always trickle down into the actual productized capabilities that people are going to use in their everyday lives.
mm, mm, mm. Okay, well, we'll see. Thank you for sharing your ideas and your opinions on product development in the era of AI. Let's now move to my favorite fives. Um, um, Actually, this is just like a set of 5 questions that I ask everybody on this podcast. So the first one is, what is your number one challenge at work?
Ooh, that's a good one. So actually, I like to think that I've solved my number one challenge at work,
Hmm,
and that is the blank slate problem. So I think a lot of us that have to, and that this is an entire range of roles and responsibilities that I think have to start something from scratch, right? So the blank slate problem, that how do I describe this new feature? How do I, create this new messaging for a product? I think the blank slate problem is something that I've been able to solve thanks to MaxGPT, amongst other things, to now be able to take the rudimentary kind of brainwaves that I have as an idea is forming in my mind, articulate those, and then get basically stimulated to think more about it, think about it in different ways, and being able to communicate with something back and forth that kind of continuously challenges you until you figure out exactly how you want to describe something. So that is definitely the number one challenge that I think a lot of us have, that now is much easier to solve.
I see. Well, if you solve the number one challenge, I guess the other challenges can be left to your Max GPT, and you just always on the vacation from now on. So the second question
Fingers
from the
crossed.
favorite five. Um, if you could choose one key metric, the North Star that defines your success as a product leader, what would that be?
I would definitely say, user adoption, right? I think if you can make your product something that users want to use, and ideally users want to use and pay for, that is like the North Star of the metrics that I would put there. Like I said, I've seen so many really cool companies do really cool things, but nobody understood the problem that we're solving. Sometimes even got asked, what is the problem that you're solving? This is amazing, but what does it actually do for me? So I think user adoption would be my North Star.
Mm-hmm. Great. And how do you collect feedback from your customers? What processes and tools do you use for that?
So I think that's a continuously evolving thing, right? As a lot of customers have moved to the cloud, I think that feedback loop is much more built into, I would say, the product itself, meaning that with a PLG type of approach, customers can actually communicate with us through the product. They can help themselves through the product, and get feedback through the product. And I think if you look at all of the possibilities and ways that you could now analyze data coming from the usage of your products and certain specific features, um, you know, the whole mechanism can also be automated to a level that you can, especially again with having these types of AI tools in your back pocket in your toolbox, that entire user journey can be so much more exciting and more automated, and you can send a specific piece of information or you can turn on specific features for certain customers, depending on what you're seeing that they're trying to do. And the level of automation there is, I think, because we also now have this ability to do all of this in real time because of the level of processing power that we have, the ability to interpret all of these signals that we're getting from the products about what customers and users are doing. I think we can move to a place where we can really help them be successful within the product in real time, even spot before things might go wrong. And that's definitely the level that we're trying to get to at ABBYY as well.
So, but I guess you accompany this with the interviews with your customers and things like that, or are you purely let's say dependent on like what you have in the product and the data coming from there?
No, I think No, I think definitely the product would be one of the main North Stars, but then
Hmm.
definitely you have support processes. We especially in the enterprise, there's a lot of emphasis on the personal connection with customers as well through our technical teams, that
Hmm.
also get direct feedback from customers on products, and that there's a whole loop and process. So I think definitely also as a company there, we're evolving to become better and faster at doing that, so that our iteration cycles of feedback coming from customers and moving into products becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. But on the other side, there's also something to take into account because we do have these, I would say, very compliance heavy enterprise customers that then also have these cycles in which they have to work. So that makes it for an interesting challenge about what exactly do you do with feedback and how do you do it, and does it actually perhaps even depend on the type of customer or the type of delivery method that they've chosen, when that feedback gets incorporated. So it's an intricate process, to answer that question.
Hmm. Okay. Now, build build versus buy. How do you decide? And we've been through that a lot together, but yeah,
Are
let's
you
chat.
asking that question, Yuri, for a specific reason? It feels like there's a story behind that.
This
Um,
is the
no,
random, but it's
well,
just a part of the favorite five. So yeah.
um, no, I think build versus buy, in all honesty, I think has become even more important. And builds can mean a lot of different things these days. I think you can build from, meaning that you take something that's readily available in the open source community, research community, and actually then build from there.
Mm,
Or if it's something that is more critical to you as an organization, you should also look at the buy. I think what is these days the benefit from for a lot of product companies is that there is a lot of I would say offerings in a lot of different categories that you want to do. And I think all in all, the most important bit in your decision for build versus buy and that whole process is to think about what is the end result that I'm trying to achieve and how fast do I need to achieve it. I think that is for me the metric that I would always use to say, hey, what kind of decision are we going to make? Um, but it's a lengthy process, and it's difficult to kind of I would say also make sure that you are able to paint that picture fully for the organization, to make sure that everybody understands that, hey, yes, we're going to buy this, but it's going to be part of our product. That being said, in today's world with everybody, everything being available as an API as a service, there's so many products that are just a combination of different other products that have been bought and combined into an actual end-to-end solution, which is in the end exactly what the customer wants. They want to peel, they don't want to deal with all the complexity of combining things that are available on the market, and actually have a solution to solve that problem. So I really think it depends on what you're trying to achieve. And it might be a different answer for each and every one of these, topics that might be under consideration for build or buy. As a product organization, I would definitely say, from my personal perspective, try to buy if it exists. There's no point in reinventing the wheel if something fits. From a enterprise perspective, as an end customer, I would also definitely say, don't even bother looking at buy unless you're really trying to build something very specific for your organization, because there's so much out there, and a lot of times the actual work that goes into it is so underestimated. To for example, build a model that reads documents, people think is easy, but once they start doing it, they realize very quickly it is not. It is not.
Mm, mm. Great. So the last question is, what role do integrations with third-party products play in your product?
Well, I think that's a really important one, and the importance of it, I think, will definitely increase for each and every product that exists today. Because um, what's also been happening in the market is that a lot of customers now like that they have the ability to pick and choose certain components of their end-to-end solution from different vendors. You could have storage from Azure, you could have it from AWS, you can have it from Google, you can have it from somebody else. And they're kind of all interchangeable because they all have similar integrations. So I think integrations capabilities and the fact that we're continuously moving to processing more and more data coming from more and more different sources, um, it's just essential. There's no way around it. The ability to do that, the ability to very easily connect multiple data sources and now multiple AI capabilities all into one, and then being able to move that to the next step of the process or move it into the next system where it has to be interpreted. It's absolutely essential. So good that you guys are building a cool product to do that.
Great. All right. Well, Max, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. A lot of great ideas and opinions. So, yeah, well, best of luck in your new position at ABBYY, and best of luck to ABBYY altogether. And yeah, thank you once again, and have a great day. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Bye bye.